into the advisory now, though, and we are getting close to the start date for the controversial Division 296 tax. Will it really go ahead in its current form? Let's ask Rob Gilmour from Wealth Simplicity, who joins me now. Good to see you, Rob.
Hi, Juliet.
Very, very controversial, this tax. What's your thoughts on whether it's going to go ahead in the current form?
Yes, well, I think for many months now and prior to the election, it was very much, wait and see. It's not legislation. I think now if you read the tea leaves that it's definitely going to come in, and probably in its current form, given that there's not going to be much opposition in the Senate, and the government is pretty determined to get it through.
So that means, therefore, that the tax on unrealised gains is potentially going to go through in the current form. What does that mean for somebody that has a high super balance?
Yeah, look, it has a varying impact. The tax on unrealised gains is one of those points of contention as to whether that might change in terms of what goes through. My view is it's definitely going to go through in that current form, simply because that's the way it's been designed to operate with the ATO. It's a very simple way for the ATO to implement this tax, and so any changes now around that principle are very, very unlikely. So we need to plan for that event, and that, I guess, very dangerous precedent that they are taxing unrealised gains, but they're really doing it because it's the easiest way to go about it.
What does it mean, though? Because it's not just people with super balances over 3 million. It could be younger people, given that their compound interest will see them get to that point in the future.
There has been a lot of talk about indexation. Look, indexation, it's not a problem until it becomes a problem.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, we have a 2 million lifetime super balance cap pensions that is indexed, and eventually that will converge towards that $3 million tax on super in Div 296, and that's when the problem will need to be addressed, and it will be addressed by future governments as those two rates converge.
Is that fair that the current government's saying, look, a next government can deal with this?
Well, they've put a line in the sand around $3 million, and it's not a case where average or higher middle income earners are going to be caught by that. And a lot of people would say 3 million is generous, and a lot of people say 2 million is generous. So it is a problem that can be kicked down the road. What the focus should be on is the impact of this tax today, and how to start planning around for it.
All right, so give us a real world impact and how somebody would plan for it.
So I think there is some misconception around the impact of it. People immediately jump to the conclusion, oh, my balance, if it moves over $3 million, it's going to be taxed by 15%. The reality is it's just the proportion of your balance over $3 million that's going to be taxed. So let's say you move from 3 million to 3.3 million. Well, that means that about 9% of your balance is over the $3 million threshold. So it's only 9% of that $300,000 that'll be subject to the tax. And then that works out to be about a $4,000 Div 296 bill. The effective tax rate is, just over 1%. So for those balances that are not far over the $3 million threshold, the impact's not too significant. But when those balances start to get sort of 5 million, 8 million, 10 million and above, then that does start to converge more towards, yes, it is a 15% impost when those balances are significantly higher than the 3 million threshold.
So what sort of strategies are you recommending to clients now?
So, look, there is a bit of debate around the start date and whether it will start on 1 July, and I think we need to work on the basis that it will. It's baked into the government forward estimates, and like I said earlier, there's not a lot of opposition to this coming through. So there are, for some, where they're going to be already over the $3 million threshold, and they are going to be over that $3 million threshold in 12 months' time, they're going to be caught by that. And there is a small window of opportunity to reduce balances before the 1st of July to minimise some of that impact when they do land over that $3 million threshold in 12 months' time. One has to remember that once you get into a financial year, you can't just withdraw money and lower your balance, because those things are added back. So there are some nuances to think about how that might impact in the first year of operation. But then strategically, you do need to be thinking about, well, what sort of assets should I be having in superannuation, and are there other alternatives to thinking about that?
And what would some of the other alternatives be?
Yeah, one of the obvious things is moving money out of super, and look, this is definitely going to trigger bigger succession planning questions around passing wealth to the next generation. People will be looking at their superannuation balances going, well, the government's taxing me on profits I'm not going to make, and I have a large taxable portion in my fund, and it might bring forward some of those decisions to distribute family wealth. There are alternatives to running money outside of superannuation. Investment bonds are touted, there's family trusts, there's companies, there's owning assets personally. All of these things need to be considered on a case-by-case basis because there are costs of switching and moving assets, and sometimes maybe the status quo is the least worst outcome.
All right, so the 1st of July is Tuesday. Should we be panicking?
Well, I think it's really a case of planning, and I am getting a lot of feedback out there where all of a sudden there's a realisation that this is coming in. And I think, look, for most, it doesn't require action before the 1st of July, but yes, for some, there is some potential benefit, but it really does come down to thinking about that broader plan, thinking about where you're running those assets, those broader family considerations in terms of the family wealth will all come on the table. So it's not something that can be done in a very quick moment. It's something that has to have a lot of thought for the longer term.